Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2025. How exciting is that we get to start a brand new year? I know I've spent, what are we, the 6th it is today that I'm filming this video. I know I've spent, a couple of the days early in the new year really having a think about what I want this year to look like and what things I want to get up to this year that are super exciting and invigorating. And today's session or episode really is about helping you start to prepare to have the most amazing 2025 possible in your salon or clinic. It's kind of a part two to my part one, which I filmed on the back end of last year. So the back end of last year, the episode was the mistakes that the salon and the clinic owners made in 2024. And I'll go into a little bit more detail around that because I think that it leads into nicely what we're going to do differently in 2025 and the things that you need to be aware of or doing differently or thinking about from a strategic perspective that can really, really set you up for some phenomenal success. So let's get started, shall we? And I really want to encourage you to stay right to the end or just make sure that you get through the whole YouTube episode because there's lots of juicy bits in this. There's lots of different ideas. There's lots of things to think about, things that you might need to reconsider or things that you might need to do differently, so just listening for 5 minutes and going off and not finishing is really not going to be a good start to your 2025. Don't start like that. Finish it off, right? So let's get into it. Hey, just going to bring up my notes here so I absolutely don't miss a thing when it comes to this. All right. So backstory. There were lots of things that went on in 2024. Um, it was a very challenging time in business. It really was. Lots of people felt the pinch. A lot of really well-established businesses did it hard, let alone new ones and ones that are only a couple of years in. But, as I mentioned in the last episode, some of the big established well-heeled salons and clinics that we all love and know that contribute so much to our industry even either come to a standstill, were very stagnant or went backwards in terms of their growth and their revenue and their cash flows. So I spent the last episode really talking about the fact that there, across the board, was that there was a lack of innovation and responsiveness and adaptation to a changing market. And it's a bit of common sense, really, that if something is changing around you and you don't adapt to that, there's obviously going to be some consequences for that. The consequence for business is that you might be missing out on opportunities. It might be that you're holding on to a way of doing something that just doesn't serve you anymore, doesn't work anymore, doesn't get the same effect like it used to. So it doesn't make sense to continue doing what you're doing. But unfortunately, for a lot of business owners that were probably a bit caught off guard by the fluctuation that was 2024, they kind of just dug their heels in, thought they could just weather the storm and everything would blow over and they would be able to just pick up where they left off and everything would return to normal. But that's not what happened. And it's fair to say that that also is not what's going to happen in 2025. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I don't believe that the economic crunch is over. I don't believe that 2025 is going to be easier. Unfortunately, and I'll speak to the Australian market. Obviously, there's different markets abroad, Australia in particular, and New Zealand, because we're very closely aligned when it comes to politics and policies and the way that we do government. But there's no end in sight in the way that the government are managing budgets, immigration, cost of living pressures. There's nothing that I can see that they're doing now that's going to produce solutions in the near future that's going to ease these cost of living pressures. So for all of my Australian and New Zealand business owners out there, strap in. Other countries are starting to lift. US, UK are starting to show improvements in their economic markets. They're starting to show some recovery because of the efforts that they've been making, which is really promising to see. So awesome to you guys out there. It might be a little bit less bleak for you, but Australia and New Zealand, we've got some work to do, right? So what were the challenges? I'm going to quickly run over those, besides the fact that there's a lack of innovation and there's some stubbornness and some business owners digging their heels in and just wishing for this all to go away. The main symptoms of that, or what we saw happening in the fluctuating market, was lots of cancellations, lots of reduction in client commitment. Obviously, with less money to spend, clients started dropping like flies. Stable businesses, had to start trying to find some new clients because their existing clients were really feeling the pinch and they were dropping off, or they were, reducing their spending. Cash flow was obviously starting to reduce and go backwards. And then obviously the flow-on effect from that was that the mindset of the salon and the clinic owner really started taking some heavy hits. There was a lot of victim mentality floating around, a lot of, I'm not making money because the economy is doing this, that, and the other thing. I'm not making money because the clients don't have any money. People are cancelling appointments because they've got no money. And, the mindset was very scarce and very victimized in response to a lot of the economic contraction that we were seeing. So it was almost like a full circle of challenge, in that, yes, the reality and the truth is that there's some economic contractions and there's some problems there, and there's some shifting in the market, which means that it's going to create some new challenges for our business. But it didn't necessarily mean that there weren't still people out there that could spend. It didn't mean that there weren't still people out there that wanted our services, that there were people out there that had willingness to commit to the services that we offer. It just meant that you needed to work harder for it, and maybe not even harder. It just meant that you needed to do some things differently, right? You needed to evaluate what you were doing and how you were doing things, and potentially refresh a lot of that, okay, in response to some of the problems or some of the things that were happening in the business. So when clients were stretching and skipping appointments, that required you to restructure your business model to minimize some of the impacts of that. And that didn't happen for a lot of people. When clients started canceling their appointments, that required you to manage clients a little bit differently, or to have different structures set up in your business to try and buffer cancellations, or to refill cancellations. And that didn't happen for a lot of businesses. When all of a sudden some of the more stable businesses who relied on really solid existing clientele started to lose some of that clientele, rather than sit there and wait for that clientele to come back, those businesses really needed to double down on new client acquisition. And some of them didn't do that. They were just waiting around, waiting for the clients to come back, and some of those clients never came back, right? And then some business owners made the decision that, their mindset will improve when all of this blows over, and the reality is that your mindset's up to you. Whether you feel scarce, whether you feel victimized, whether you feel abundant, or whether you feel positive, that's all up to you. No one's coming to save your mindset. So if your mindset took a real tumble in 2024 and you were thinking that someone was going to drop out the sky and give you a different result for you to feel better, you very quickly realized that that wasn't the reality. And then potentially you either just stayed in that frame of mind and experienced a very overwhelming and difficult year of business, not just because of the difficulties that you were facing, but also because your mental health and your mindset was fluctuating so much that, you know, you didn't have a lot of stability in the way that you were thinking about things and the way that you were approaching some of the challenges in your business. So what needs to be different? What are the strategies? What would I be focusing on in 2025? And I'll let you in, like I said, stay to the end, make sure that you get the juice on all of these things, because I don't pluck these strategies out of the sky. My clients grew in 2024. My clients got more clients in 2024. They grew their businesses, they grew their profit, they grew their retention, they grew their sales of subscriptions, they grew their retail, they grew in every sense of the word, and it wasn't an accident. There were specific strategies and ways of doing business that they started to act on, things that they were learning from the Freedom Mastery program, from aligning themselves with beast mode marketing, some of the businesses that I run, you know, some of the content that I was putting out, the masterclasses that I was running, the workshops and the mini courses that I was running, that were helping people really buffer themselves from these challenges in business. And I'm going to share with you some of the most successful strategies that were responsible for those business owners that entrusted their strategy with me to be able to grow and not experience I wouldn't say not experience the turmoil, because they definitely experienced the turmoil, but they didn't suffer the adverse consequences of the turmoil. They were able to put in place strategies and do things differently to make sure that they didn't suffer as much as other businesses that weren't adapting and changing and coming up with different strategies of how to respond to the fluctuating market. So I'll address the first anomaly, I suppose, of 2024, and that was the stretching and the skipping of appointments. Cancellation of appointments, like obviously it would be a normal thing to expect that if someone has started to experience increased cost of living pressures because, you know, everything's gone up, everything's more expensive. To go and shop at the supermarket these days is freaking eye-watering. You know, the electricity bills are ridiculous. You know, the rents are going up, the mortgages are going up. And then your client's looking around going, shit, the $200 that I had to spend on my skin treatment, or the $500 that I had to spend on my foils, is not there anymore. You know, so then you found that people, you know, your clients are ringing up and stretching and skipping appointments and, you know, not showing up at all, or, you know, refusing to rebook with you. They're kind of like, let me just use online booking because I'm really not sure when I'm going to be able to afford to come in next. You know, and this really started to contribute to some of the decline in the client numbers that we were seeing. But there was definitely some ways that we were able to get around that. You know, so a popular strategy that I think is probably, I wouldn't say it's what's the word for it? I think it's a simple concept, but it's not done well by a lot of salons and clinics, and that is the people call it memberships. I call it the subscription planning business model. In that, you know, the way that you engage clients is about planning out their journey and then making it easier for them to pay in installments. So it's never about a one service situation here where you have someone come in, have a full head of foils, and then skip off into the sunset and say something along the lines of, hey, I don't have my roster yet, but I'll let you know when I can book back in again, right? That mentality of allowing somebody to just skip from appointment to appointment or swing from an appointment to appointment. They're only really focused on the single service, you know, that's a mentality, is eliminated by a business model that runs on a subscription. You know, and the subscription is about really being able to articulate the journey for people in a really exciting and enticing way. And I found that the businesses that had that structure, you know, that had treatment and service planning structures, whether they had a subscription methodology for paying in installments or not, the businesses that had, those subscription style structures, mapping out the journeys, really did avoid, or some of the fluctuations in bookings and commitment was minimized by the businesses that had those structures in place. Some of the businesses that I worked with completely eliminated online booking for existing clients. They just didn't see that it was helpful, and it wasn't. Because when we were crunching the numbers, we found that the online booking clients were the ones that weren't stretching and skipping their appointments the most. So we didn't just look at, overall, are we losing clients, or why are we servicing less clients than what we used to? We actually started to peel back the layers of all the ways that people would normally book. Were the people not showing up for appointments online bookers, or did they book their appointments in advance? Were the people not stretching? Were the people that was stretching and skipping their appointments people that attended to swing from an appointment to appointment, or were they actually the clients that were engaged in subscriptions or memberships? So we did a lot of analysis into that, and what unfolded from that were things that needed to happen to be able to build out extra buffers in these businesses. So, some of my business owners switched off online bookings for existing clients and only accepted new client bookings through online portals. They transitioned all of their clients into subscriptions, or at least had treatment and service plans in place for every single client. Even the clients that were in areas where, and this is a common excuse that I get from business owners when I say to them, well, everybody's got to be mapped into service plans. And they'll say things like, well, or I say something along the lines of, well, turn off your online booking. They'll say to me, oh, but I've got a lot of shift workers, and I've got a lot of nurses, and, people that just FIFO workers that just cannot give me a future date of booking, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't deserve a plan, right? So you might not be able to, like all your other clients, go and book 6 to 12 appointments dated in advance, but you can certainly plan 6 to 12 appointments in advance. And you can certainly say to the nurse, the FIFO worker, here are the dates that you're due for these appointments. Here's your schedule. You can use the online booking portal to obviously, facilitate those appointment or those bookings for yourself. But this is kind of the schedule. This is what I want to see. So then at least they know if they're blowing the schedule. They know if they're booking outside of the recommended frequency of attendance. They know if they're stretching or they're skipping their appointments. A lot of the time, to the business owners that are making arguments around the shift worker, they're saying things like, oh, well, they just don't know. So they don't know when they can come in next. It doesn't excuse the fact that they still need a plan, right? They still need a pathway of being able to maintain and achieve results for the problems that they're coming to you for, whether they're hair, skin, or beauty. They still need a plan. Okay, what's different for them is that they're a lot more in control of their own plan, because they need to obviously follow through on the appointment bookings themselves rather than have you book all of those things in advance. So getting future commitment, however that looks like for clients, whether it be overhauling your business model and putting everyone on subscription. If it's not subscription, it's at least having everybody mapped and planned in, with really clear dates of when things need to be happening. A lot of my clients either put those structures in place or already had those structures in place, which meant that they were able to really weather the fluctuations in the client commitment. And the other thing that they did the other thing that I'm recommending that you do is that when you have clients that are coming to you, and I think this really does rely on a good consult that is geared towards motivation, that you ask the questions about budget and commitment. Whether there are things that need to be modified to take into account the changing circumstances of the client is really, really important. If you're taking time to check in on that, hey, how do you think we're going? Like, obviously the prescription is that I see you every 4 weeks. and you might be that you're addressing it with clients that are stretching and skipping. I've noticed that the last couple of appointments you've stretched out to 6 weeks rather than 4 weeks. Obviously the plan is designed to get you results, but is this working for you logistically? Is this working for you financially? Are there other things that we might need to take into consideration here about your capacity to make sure that I've got something set up in place here for you that's actually going to work according to your circumstances, whether that be financial, whether that be from a time frame perspective and a commitment level, making sure that you're not just consulting around concern being the problem that they're coming to you for, that you're actually taking the time to consult around their capacity being their willingness and their ability to actually commit to what it is that you're putting in front of them. And I found that if you're able to ask more meaningful questions around that in your consultations, it's going to provide you with a lot more opportunity to modify things rather than lose people altogether. So tips and tricks for 2025, guys. Planning models, subscription models, making sure that everybody's got a plan, even if you don't want to go down the membership subscription, paying in installments route. Everyone should have a plan and schedule dates of what their next 6 to 12 months look like, whether they're a shift worker or not, right? And then also you're touching base with your clients in consultation meaningfully around capacity, not just concern. Do they have the means and the willingness to be able to do what you're asking them to do? And if not, can you adjust or modify what you're asking them to do to increase the likelihood of them staying committed? Right. So I think that, to be able to do all of that really successfully means that you really do need to have some consistency around your client journey. That all of your team members are on the same page when it comes to planning, when it comes to consultation, that, your clients aren't receiving, different levels of service when it comes to different team members that are operating in your business, and that you've got checks and balances for all of this stuff. So it's no good having one team member planning all of their clients and making sure they've all got treatment and service plans, and then the other team member just not doing any of that, or saying they're doing that, but their retention rate's really shit. So there does need to be some consistency and accountability around your client journey for this to be successful. You need to make sure that you're meeting with the team members one-to-one, you're quality assuring the processes. You can quality assure by obviously looking at performance, looking at retention, doing observations of consultations, doing role plays with your team members, doing client surveys. You need to check all this stuff. You can't just assume that it's happening. So even for my clients that did have all of these business model structures in place, 2024 really required them also to go back and quality assure and make sure that there was compliance around all of these things. They're not just set and forget. You don't just train your team members on how to do this and then just assume that they're doing these things. And often the numbers will tell us whether these things are happening or not. So being across your numbers, holding your team member accountable to performance standards and expectations when it comes to, treatment planning clients, service planning clients, retaining clients, engaging them in subscriptions, consulting them in a way where we're making sure that we're asking about their capacity. All of that requires oversight. It doesn't just happen. So what are the things that you need to put in place in your business from an accountability perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a quality assurance perspective, to make sure that all of these things actually take place is potentially the work. It's the forever work. It's not just the work for 2025. It's the forever work of a business owner to make sure that what they're asked for and the standard that they're setting for their client service is being met. And we've got the structures and the accountability in place to check these things. The business owner's life work is what I call it, right? So the other opportunity in 2025 to really, if it's been a bit of a fizzer for you last year, is to really have a look at your marketing skills and your capacity. Like, it's really dangerous to just rest on your laurels in terms of, I know this is a really good example of people just thinking that clients are just going to drop out the sky. But I often see people asking questions like, hey, I'm, thinking of renting this commercial shop front, but I'm a bit concerned that there's no walk-by traffic. And it's like, dude, who relies on walk-by traffic these days? Like, if you really think that your business is going to survive on someone just happening to walk past your window and walk in the front door, you are absolutely kidding yourself. Right? I know that even in the past 2 years, I have had to help business owners who had clinics in major shopping centers that absolutely got pummeled in COVID, that pay these exorbitant rents for what's the word for it? For the claim that the real estate is going to be able to bring them clients. Now, unfortunately, a lot of business owners that are in high volume exposure places are paying the big rents, but they're not even getting the volume coming through the front door, right? So just thinking that people are going to walk in your front door is dangerous. One of the most important skills that you can learn as a business owner is how to market. You need to learn how to market. And it's not just with acquiring new clients, it's about how do you engage the clients you've already got? People have databases full of emails and phone numbers, but they just send out the same shit boring email once a month with their specials in it, and they think that that's going to get people to book. Like, that's marketing to year 2000, dudes. Like, you really need to be up to the minute on, organic social media strategies and what's working now, all the platform opportunities that you've got across, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, stories, reels, all of that stuff. SEO, Google, and I'm not saying that you need to know the absolute ins and outs of all of that. Some of it you do, but at least be across how you can use those marketing opportunities to your advantage, right? Facebook, social media ads. And if you don't know a thing about any of these things, go and learn it. Go and get some. And like I said, you don't need to be an expert in Google ads to go and use Google ads. You don't need to know how to build Facebook ads, but you do need to understand the basic principles of that marketing, and then go and find somebody that knows what they're doing, has proven experience in those things, in, let's say, running Facebook ads. My recommendation would be proven experience in your niche, not generic marketers, and that's a whole nother YouTube episode, but people that have proven experience in your industry, and start tapping into that, right? Your business growth is your responsibility. Clients do not drop out the sky. Business doesn't drop out the sky. You're responsible for generating your own interest and inquiry. So upskilling in marketing has to happen. If you don't know how to acquire new clients, you're in a dangerous position. If you don't know how to effectively engage clients with email marketing, SMS, re-engagement strategies, you're in a very vulnerable position, right? And I'm not saying this because I do have some short courses coming up that can help with this. The reason why I've got short courses coming up is because I realized that there was big vulnerability out there in clinic and salon owners that just don't know this stuff. So I went and created a course, right? So I will, in the comments below, I'm going to drop, I've got a free masterclass that I'm going to have running. I've got my overflow marketing program that's going to drop at the end of January. I'll pop the links in there for you to have a look at, right? But that, as a side note, get educated. Do not rely on clients dropping out the sky or old clients returning to your business as your lifeline for you being able to maintain a business that has full appointment books. Okay, you need to know how to get new clients. You need to know how to re-engage your database. You need to know how to email market. You need to know how to send SMS. You need to know how to follow up lost clients. You need to know that stuff. It's not an extra to know that stuff, right? It's an absolute necessity in being a successful business owner. The last opportunity that I think is just so underrated, honestly, like I feel like my next body of work is getting people to realize, and I'm probably a bit biased, but it's not even that biased because I'm a psychologist, but I often have to convince people how important working on your internal state of mind is to become a business person that's successful. I would go as far as saying that well, Tony Robbins says it. He says 80% of your success is actually psychologically reliant, and I'm forever trying to convince salon and clinic owners to work on themselves, but they're still running around going, oh, I just need new clients. Oh, if someone just showed me how to send an SMS, everything would be fine. Oh, if someone could just help me to train my team on consult. Oh, if most of the time, the reasons why you're experiencing problems in your business is because of you, because of the way that you think about things, because of your own beliefs, because of the way that you see yourself through your action or your inaction, through your fears and your anxieties, through your avoidance or your approach. All of the strategies rely on you having really healthy and functioning psychology. Yet so many business owners don't think it's necessary, or that's secondary to you being able to learn how to market or learn how to get new clients or to learn the latest team training techniques. Most of your success is reliant on you up-leveling your psychology, right? And that's not just because I'm a psychologist, that's reality. I can tell you from my own experiences that my business growth now, it's not coming from new strategies. I know how to build businesses. I've built several of them to 7 figures very successfully. I don't need strategy. I need to keep learning to understand myself, learning where my vulnerabilities are, learning how to respond in different ways, learning how to catch myself in moments where, I might be going to do a certain thing or make a decision around something, and that is influenced by anxiety, fear, overwhelm, panic, whatever it is, just the dysregulation of my emotional experiences, because the reality is we're all human, right? Which means that there is not one of you out there that is not vulnerable to these things. And when these vulnerabilities influence your success, they have to be addressed. So the way that you regulate your emotional state, your coping skills, your relationship skills, your self-leadership skills, your leadership of other people, they're all psychological skills. The way that you think, the way that you respond, the way that you communicate, the way that you problem solve. You can't tell me that none of that is part of the success trajectory. Like, it's just, yet people, business owners, particularly in the hair and beauty space, constantly just chase the next strategy and they deprioritize all of that psychological work. So 2025 needs to be the year of self-development. If you want to be successful, you need to be prepared to work on yourself. And there's so many definitions of that I'm not even going to go in prescribing what that looks like for you, because it's so different for every single person. It might be investing in a mentor or a coach. It might be getting a psychologist. It might be, going to therapy. It might be going on wellness retreats or taking more holidays, or I don't know what you need to do to expand your mind or to be able to sit with yourself and go inwards and engage in more self-reflection. I don't know what it is for you, but make it a part of your business success plan that you work on you, because too much of that is deprioritized. And I know that because I argue with people about it all day. I have conversations with some of my clients, not too many, but there's still a couple floating around that fall off the wagon every now and again. And they'll say to me things like, we have wellbeing sessions that I have practitioners run every week. And they're often very psychologically geared, and every now and again, I'll get a client saying, I don't need those wellness sessions. What do you mean? So basically, you're saying that you're the most fully evolved human being and you don't need to work on yourself? Is that what you're saying? Like, what are you saying when you're saying you don't need to work on yourself? Right? And I think the thing is that you don't even need to say something like that. It's also what you're doing. If you're not prioritizing those things, you're basically saying that in a nutshell. If you're not hiring mentors, if you're not investing in coaching, if you're not getting a psychologist, if you're not going to therapy, if you're not investing in a retreat, if you're not taking enough holidays, basically you're saying, without saying it, that you're deprioritizing those things. So your action taking around those self-development areas need to demonstrate that you're actually doing something about these things, not just talking about it. All right. So let's work through this. 2025. These are the things. These are the areas. These are the strategies. These are the focal points for you to be successful. Business model around planning clients, treatment and service planning, right? Even if it's not subscription or membership, it's actually crafting out pathways for people, modifying pathways based on capacity, making sure that there is enough meaningfulness in your consultations to know where your client's at every given time, to make sure that what you've mapped for them is still working, not just from a results perspective, but from a commitment perspective as well. In addition to that, that you've got all of the business foundations to set up to make sure consistency, accountability, compliance to all of these structures that you've set up in your business. That you double down on your ability to create demand. You know how to market, or you know who to go to for that. Right? You're not leaving yourself vulnerable to this theory that people are just going to drop out the sky. And finally, the most important point is that you see your self-development first and foremost as the number one thing that is important to your success, and you being able to reach those next levels of, revenue or team performance or cash flow or profit, whatever it is. I can tell you it's hiding behind the up-leveling of your psychology. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Has this landed for you? In the comments also, I've chucked some links to my Overflow program, my free masterclass that's coming up called Fully Booked. I'd love to see you there.